Sabah al-Khair, good morning. My name is Samer Jude. I'm the Vice Chairman of Edama, and on behalf of Edama, I'd like to welcome you to this webinar. As you know, Jordan was a real success story when it comes to utility scale renewable energy projects, and actually smaller projects also. We've all seen a surge in utility scale projects and other projects with an investment value in excess of $4 billion over the past 10 years. The renewable energy market in Jordan has surpassed the emerging phase, with a good percentage of our energy mix coming from renewables. The Jordan-German Energy Partnership encourages and facilitates exchange and transfer of knowledge, know-how, and best practices in the energy sector. The Energy Partnership is in collaboration with Edama and Solar Power Europe to gain access to guidelines and best practices developed from experience. The COVID crisis over the past year and a half has had a severe impact on Jordan's renewable energy sector. And it is for that reason that today's session, properly entitled Post-COVID-19 Addressing a Clean and Green Recovery in Jordan, is a session that will tackle these issues with some top specialists from various sectors. I would like to welcome everybody who's joining us here and point out that this session is recorded, and this session also will have a translation for those who prefer. The session will be moderated by our dear friend Dr. Iyad Sartawi. And guest speakers, but I'll name them for the time being: Mr. Miguel Herrero from Solar Power Europe, Mr. Bassam Derwish from GIZ, Reem Al-Masri, our dear friend and ex-Edama, and Natalie Asfour from Edama. So with that in mind, I would like to also point out, if you have any questions to direct to the panelists, I would kindly appreciate that you send them on the chat box that you see in your at the bottom of your screen. So with that, I hand over to our dear friend Dr. Iyad.
صندوق الدردشة من أجل
consultant. Please, Dr. Iyad, the mic is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all. Thank you, Mr. Samer, for this introduction about the importance of this project. Let me first also again welcome all the panelists and all the guest attendees to this webinar. Hopefully, we'll have a good discussion about the outcomes of this policy paper that will benefit the Jordanian market, especially the renewable and sustainable field in Jordan. As you see through the sharing web screen, we'll have the agenda starting at 11:10 with the Jordanian German Energy Partnership presentation. Will be introduced by Engineering Bassam Derwish. Then we'll have the Solar Power Europe presentation, talking about the association and also their perspective dealing with COVID-19, the international practice, how to mitigate the effect of this pandemic. Will be by Mr. Miguel Herrero. Then we'll have the Edama presentation and talking about the association, and the presentation for the report by my colleague Natalie Asfour and Engineering Reem Al-Masri. Then after that, we'll go to a session of discussion through Q&A. So please, as Mr. Samer mentioned, if you have questions, I encourage you to send the questions and notes through the chat box. We will group these questions in topics, and I will direct that to the panelists for a discussion. Then at the end, we'll have the closing remarks. For that brief description of the agenda today, hopefully we will have discuss this important topic for the benefit of the Jordanian market in general and the renewable energy, talking about boosting renewable energy buildup as a contribution to Jordan's post-COVID-19 recovery. Talking about the clean and sustainable recovery in Jordan is very essential and important. And for that, as this, let's say, topic is under the umbrella of the funded by the Jordanian-German Energy Partnership, our colleagues and members from Ministry of Energy who are attending this event. Engineer Bassam Darwish, it's your floor. Please, if you want to go ahead and share your presentation talking about the program, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Riyad. I would like to ask to present my presentation. So Natalie, please. Yeah, thank you. Again, thank you, Dr. Riyad, for having me. For those who don't know me, I'm Bassam Darwish, an advisor for the Jordanian-German Energy Partnership. The head of the partnership secretariat, Mr. Yohannes Oul, sent his apologies. He could not attend because of a sudden meeting. He wishes you all the best and sends his regards. I would like to welcome the participants and thank Edama and Solar Power Europe for their efforts in the policy paper. Hopefully, it will support the recovery planning. I will briefly present the energy partnership in here. So please, next slide, or no, keep it, previous slide, yes. The Jordanian-German Energy Partnership is actually a forum for high-level exchange. The idea is to connect representatives from both countries and all sectors. We facilitate innovation in the energy sector. We are supporting an affordable, reliable, and sustainable supply of energy. This is based on the efficient use of domestic resources. Also, we see the regional and international dimension in here. Therefore, we see coordination in the energy policies with both the regional and international. And in that part, the energy partnership is actually a connection between more than 25 countries. From them, we have a couple of countries on the Arab region and MENA region as well. We actually also enhance and stimulate the private sector activity, especially in innovation, because innovation is the way forward for energy. Next slide, please. Thank you. The Energy Partnership established as a dialogue between the two countries in 2016. Then the exchange was developed and supported by the Amman Chamber of Industry. This exchange now is a partnership between the two countries. This partnership was signed in 2019 by both the Ministries of Energy in Germany and the Ministry of Energy in Jordan. But unfortunately, due to the pandemic, the opening of the office at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources was delayed to 2020. And actually, the full operation was not fetched until 2021, which is this year. Next slide, please. In here, I would like just to showcase the topics that we are working on. They are very and different and depends on the gaps and the requirements by the Jordanian parts and also what the German experience can provide. We are working with our partners in the electricity grid and hopefully to a market development. We support innovation in the energy sector, and we would like to enhance the gender balance and gender participation in the energy sector. Energy efficiency is of importance, not only for a cost and financial benefits, but also for environmental consideration. Policy foundation is of importance, and Jordan is in here as leadership in regards of policy within the MENA region. We also would like to boost employment, and there is another dimension in here in exchange between the businesses and the companies between the two countries. Now what we are presenting here, which is developed by both Solar Power Europe and Edama, is a policy paper. And this policy hopefully will improve the decision in regards of recovery. And further, we will have other activities in regards of maintenance of PV plants and also their installation. These topics hopefully will enhance the businesses and companies in here in Jordan. Next slide, please. This is our focal team that is working both in Jordan and in Germany. Johannes Uhl, he is the head of secretariat. I am working as an advisor, and both Mr. Hendrik and Stefan are in Germany. They are working to support us in the exchange and dialogue between the two countries. So this is in a brief, the energy partnership. Thank you both, and looking forward to the policy paper. Back to you, Dr. Iyad.
Thank you, Bassam. Thank you very much for the introduction and the explanation of the, let's say, the objective of this partnership and the goal that they are aiming to achieve in Jordan. I also want to highlight that this project is a part, this policy paper is a part of a project with the three packages they are dealing with, as you mentioned, the EPC and operation and maintenance for utility scale, or let's say PV stations, the best practices, and also talking about in another package about the innovation in the electrical grid in Jordan in different sectors, digitalization, storage, mobility, which is under process now. So this policy paper is part of let's say a project that also talking about APC and operation and maintenance best practices in renewables, and also about innovation. Okay, so thank you very much for that. And now we will go to our colleague, Mr. Miguel Herrero, to talk about Solar Power Europe and their efforts and perspective of dealing with this kind of pandemic. Mr. Miguel.
Hi, thank you very much for the introduction, Dr. Iyad, and good morning to all the listeners. My name is Miguel Herrero, and I'm a policy advisor at Solar Power Europe, among other things, coordinating our work on the EU's recovery plan. Now, I don't know if I can ask for my slides to be shown, please. In the meantime, I will tell you a little bit about Solar Power Europe. We are the voice of the solar industry in the European Union. We represent more than 240 companies and European national associations working on in the solar industry across the value chain. And we aim to enable the business opportunities for our members and the solar industry generally. Do I have to share my slides, or will you share them, Natalie? Thank you. Thank you very much. We can move to the next slide. Thanks. So with regards to COVID, I mean, it's certain that the crisis had a very significant impact on our sector, particularly in the early days. Notwithstanding, the solar industry demonstrated a very impressive resilience from the crisis. So at the early stages, the main issue was in terms of access to finance, which became extremely difficult. So financial stakeholders were delaying project deals or retracting From these, there were also very important operational hurdles to deploy new installations related to the availability of workforce and the ability to for workforce to move from one European member state to the other. But notwithstanding, we were very happy to know that solar deployment rates actually increased by more than 18% in 2020 compared to 2019, which was very welcome because initially we thought that there may not be an increase in 2020, although these volumes were much lower than pre-COVID forecasts. Notwithstanding, regardless, we expect the EU solar sector to continue growing at double-digit rates in the coming years. Whether or not this will happen, and whether or not we will be closer to the yellow high scenario or to the blue low scenario on the right hand side graph, will depend heavily on the implementation of the recovery plans in the European Union. Next slide, please. Now, the EU recovery plan is relatively complex. It is framed within the EU's multi-annual financial framework, so the budget of the European Union for 2021 to 2027, which was agreed in summer last year, and comes on top of this budget. So the EU's recovery plan is called Next Generation EU and will disburse 750 billion euros to member states of the European Union in order to ensure a resilient and sustainable economic recovery from the COVID crisis. Now, I won't go too much into details, but I think the key element shown here is that Next Generation EU is divided on, supported by three pillars. The first one is to support public investments and reforms. The second is to incentivize private investments. And the third one is what they call lessons learned, which is to channel additional money for research and development, notably into focus on health and climate areas. Now, in the first pillar, which is, as you can see, the most important one, the recovery plan, on the one side, provides funds for recovery, but also targets investments to workers and regions which depend on coal and fossil fuel industries. This is a just transition fund, and an additional fund is given to support industries and companies to overcome the crisis, and that's REACT EU. It's also important to note that 30% of all the EU budget is directed towards climate action, which ensures that there is a very sizable amount of the budget which will contribute to our climate objectives. Next slide, please. The key element of the recovery plan of Next Generation EU, however, is the Recovery and Resilience Facility. And we were very happy to see that this fund will boost the renewable-based electrification of both the supply and end-use sectors. So the Recovery and Resilience Facility will provide more than 670 billion euros to EU member states over the next 3 years. And will aim to support investments that maximize sustainable economic growth. The climate mainstreaming within the Recovery and Resilience Facility is even higher than in the rest of the budget. So 37% of all of all the facility has to be directed towards climate objectives and support the achievement of the current EU's climate and energy targets for 2030 and 2050. Now, member states have had to write up their own recovery plans and show how they plan to spend the money that the European Union will give them. But something that was very interesting, in our opinion, from the Recovery and Resilience Facility was that they framed the whole facility around 7 flagship areas identified as key investment priorities. Now, these are areas where there's a need for significant additional investments, and which are needed to reach these common, particularly climate, but also digital objectives of the European Union. And 4 of these flagship programs are directly relevant for renewable-based electrification, such as Power Up, which plans to deploy more than 200 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2025, or Renovate, which aims to support the doubling of the renovation rate in the European Union, or notably Reskill and Upskill, which will provide funds to reskill and upskill the workforce in the European Union in order to make these climate and digital transitions possible. Next slide, please. And here, I mean, is where we see that definitely solar PV shines, because investments into solar offer the highest level of jobs created of any power generation technology. Here on this graph, which comes from the International Energy Agency, you see the different types of energy generation technologies. And on the bottom, you see how many jobs they create during construction. And on the y-axis, you see how much it costs to abate, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions thanks to these technologies. And solar rooftop PV is the clear winner in terms of job creation, creating almost 15 additional jobs per megawatt hour installed during the construction. And solar PV, while it has a slightly lower job creation potential, it does this at a really low cost. So you can both create many jobs and reduce a lot of CO2 emissions by directing investments into solar, large-scale solar plants. Next slide, please. But the other key element for us is that investments into renewable energy, in particular solar, will contribute to economic resilience and the competitiveness of the private sector. Because utility scale solar is so competitive across the EU against industrial and wholesale electricity prices, many corporates already in the European Union are investing their capital to enter power purchase agreements or to deploy their own renewable energy assets. This is also the case when you combine it with storage, so providing additional flexibility options, which are very interesting for many industrial players. Next slide, please. And so overall, we're quite happy because many EU member states are investing into solar for their recovery plans. I think one of the key highlights, for example, is the Spanish recovery plan, which is allocating more than 3 billion euros to deploy and integrate additional renewable energy, in particular solar and rooftop solar. They're combining this investment with reforms to improve the regulatory framework for the deployment of this renewable energy. And in addition to this, plan to launch a strategy to further promote self-consumption and boosting renewable energy communities. And for me, this is a key thing that all recovery plans must do if they want to be green. They have to support clean energy industries and boost project pipelines. They must remove the administrative grid and other financial barriers which slow down and hinder these projects. And they have to set a plan or be integrated within a plan for the future, which ensures the resilience of the sector after the recovery plan has been implemented. Next slide, please. And so this is sort of what we tried to do last year when we published our own recovery and resilience, our recommendations for the recovery and resilience plans, which we published last year, and we were very happy to transpose and see how they could fit to the Jordanian context within this project. And I won't go through the whole list. I invite you to read our own paper, and particularly the very good Edama paper, which will be presented shortly. But here, basically, what we call for is for support for the private sector, particularly in the form of credit guarantees, to access cost-competitive finance for projects, maintaining public auctions for rooftop and large-scale PV to provide visibility and certainty for investors and developers in this sector to invest into the energy infrastructure and optimize smart grids, prioritize electrification of end users, and again, finance the training of the workforce to ensure that the new projects can be built and connected with at the highest possible standard. On that note, I end my presentation. I'd like to thank Edama again and the GIZ for this very wonderful opportunity and project, and look forward to the discussions. Back to you, Dr. Iyad.
Thank you very much, Miguel. Thank you for this actually productive presentation, and that you gave us the perspective how the European Union dealt with the COVID, let's say, pandemic. One thing I noticed that when you mentioned the Spanish experience or plan to deal with COVID as an example, when they talk about not only the financial support, they talk also about a new strategy to deal with renewables and energy in general, because as we know all that the market and even the structure of business before COVID is not the same will be after the COVID. It's not going to be 1 year, 2 years. It's going to last for several years coming. But I think this is the important thing to do, is that to deal with it in that perspective and set up maybe new strategies how to deal with the energy sector for the coming years. Thank you for the presentation. I think it will open many questions in the discussion time. Let's go now to my colleague Natalie Asfour and the Edama presentation. Natalie is part of the team working on the technical side. Natalie, if you want to share and start, it's your floor. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Natalie Asfour, research analyst at Edama. Edama is a business association that was established in 2009 to service the energy, water, and environmental sectors. Our mission is to ensure the establishment and growth of a vibrant energy, water, and environment sectors in order to secure positive environmental realities for Jordan. Our vision is mainly to ensure the establishment and growth of a vibrant private energy and water sector, reflecting positive environmental realities in Jordan. Edama's niche is providing a platform agile and inclusive enough to involve a large number of public, private, and NGO sector representatives. Here it represents our members. Edama's main pillars are capacity building, business development, policy advocacy, public awareness, and cooperate social responsibility initiatives. So yeah. So today I'm going to talk about boosting renewable energy build-up as a contribution to Jordan's post-COVID-19 recovery. Edama Association, in collaboration with Jordanian German Energy Partnership and Solar Power Europe, develop reports supporting policymaker and local business. The project consists of 3 main work packages covering the theme of solar guidelines and reports intended for policymakers and local businesses. These work packages are Jordanian EPC and operation maintenance best guidelines, report on innovations, digitalization, storage and mobility, post-COVID-19, addressing a clean and sustainable recovery in Jordan. The duration of this project will be 18 months.
Go ahead, Natalie. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, if you want to go ahead, yes, please. Talk about the objectives and the actions of the project, and later on the survey that we've done.
Sure. So Edama, in cooperation with key stakeholders, have conducted a policy paper with recommendations to support Jordanian businesses in coping with the effect of COVID-19. The policy paper intended to support Jordanian policymakers establishing green recovery plans. So today we're going to talk about the effect of COVID-19 on Jordanian renewable energy companies and affect transition toward the clean energy. The main objective of this paper is addressing the challenges in green recovery, such as market demand and access to financing in COVID-19. So Edama did a survey to show the effect of COVID-19 on Jordanian renewable energy companies. Approximately 80% of members who completed the survey operate within the field of renewable energy. The rest are equally distributed between members operating with the conventional energy, water, and environmental fields. Member company business models are an equal mix of business to consumer, business to business, and business to government. According to this graph, it shows that the revenue reduction for renewable energy companies in Jordan following the COVID pandemic, upon the lockdown that happened in March 2019, it showed that 33% have recorded reduction, more than a half in revenue. 5.6% of surveyed companies did not show any reduction in revenue, while 61% of companies faced reduction that ranged between 10 to 50%. On average, companies can self-sustain for 3.7 months. Here, the pie graph shows the companies that allowed the employees to work remotely during the pandemic. So it shows that 61% of the companies were not working remotely after the end of the pandemic, and the rest of companies showed that only 9.5% employees can work from home.
Thank you, Natalie.
To Reem Nasri. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Natalie, for the presentation for Edama and talking about the project objectives and the survey that was done. Let's say I just want two notes before we go to the next, slides. First of all, I want to remind you that you can use translation either from English to Arabic or Arabic to English. So translation is you can choose the language you want to listen to. This is one thing. Second, you can send your questions and notes about the coming slides and previous ones through the chat box, public one, and we will then direct it to the panelists. For now, to talk about the findings and recommendations of the policy paper, As Natalie mentioned, a survey was done talking to different stakeholders in the public sector, in the private sector, and a market research, taking the lessons from different international cases. So we reached to, let's say, to the policy paper with recommendations and findings. For sure, many of them are, may they look general because they are needed anyway, either with COVID or without COVID, but they are now more urgent to have, more urgent to push for them. You will see that. And there's some specific measures dealing with the COVID pandemic. So for that, I want to leave this part to our colleague, Engineer Reem Al-Masri, to talk about the key recommendations and to elaborate on them. Reem, go ahead, please.
Dr. Iyad, thank you. I'm Reem Al-Masri, ex-policy and research specialist at Edama. Good morning, everyone. I will be presenting the recommendations of the policy paper shortly. While preparing the recommendation, we believe that COVID-19 emergency has highlighted the vulnerability of our development model. The changes brought on by the pandemic have shifted the global energy mix. As we witnessed at the beginning of 2020, renewable energy contributed to just over a quarter of the total global electricity generation. It showed us the potential to accelerate the move toward renewable energy, the energy transition, and the need for permanent transformation to lower energy resources. We believe that the government can use this opportunity to design economic stimulus plans, policies to promote green and sustainable recovery, to create employment, and to reduce greenhouse gas emission. In this paper, we listed short, mid, and long-term recovery measures aiming at boosting renewable energy sector and increasing its role in the post-pandemic recovery plan. As for short-term recommendations, next slide, please. We recommended that support should be provided to renewable energy companies. RE sector has suffered a decline in terms of existing and new investment, movement restriction, limiting the availability of personnel, disturbing supply chain, the delays in the completion of project under development, delays in the connection of new project, the disruption of supply chain also has an impact on the cost of the projects. Adding to that, the operational renewable energy projects, which suffered from continuous disconnection as part of NEPCO's vision on how to handle the fall in energy demand, which was witnessed globally. So to help in supporting renewable energy companies, we suggested that the government should introduce specific financing measure and cost-effective incentives for renewable energy company. Previous slide, Natalie, please. The measures should include the reduction and rescheduling of income tax and project and corporate licenses, in addition to reviewing defense order number 6 and 28. We also recommended to compensate the owners of renewable energy systems since the disconnected wheeling projects owned by hospitals, telecommunication firms, and other businesses beside the closed sectors such as schools and hotels. All of them were unable to benefit from the energy generated, as only 10% of their electricity consumption from the grid was added to their balance. So it's necessary to create a mechanism to compensate all of them for the energy that they were unable to use. As a second recommendation, as short to mid-term recommendation, we suggested to boost the renewable energy project pipeline through 3 steps. The first one is to remove the suspension of larger scale renewable projects approval, since the larger scale projects can foster the development of local industry as well as create a job creation and including small and new players, similar to what we witnessed in round 1 and round 2 in Ma'an. Also, we should focus on promoting decentralized renewable energy. We think this can be done through removing financial and administrative barriers. Edama, in collaboration with Solar Power Europe and Friedrich Ebert, published 2 separate reports on how to remove the barriers, the financial and the administrative. You can find the 2 reports uploaded on Edama's website. Also, we think that to further boost the project pipeline, we suggest to provide direct financial incentives and tax exemptions for prosumers. The main goal is to maximize their self-consumption ratio and incentivize investment into decentralized storage. So we are suggesting promoting the decentralized PV in addition to decentralized storage solutions. Third, next slide, please. Next slide. Third, as a long-term recommendation, we stressed on the importance of the regulatory framework and market structure reforms. We believe that the strategic direction toward self-reliance and increasing local resources should be expressed boldly by the government by establishing priority dispatch, which will ensure that renewable energy generators have priority access to the grid. Number 2 is to improve renewable tendering design to avoid curtailment. This can be done by introducing price and product-based strategies. In addition to that, the next stage business opportunities can be developed by working on the deployment of flexibility resources. We think that the government should develop a network code for storage systems at the transition and distribution levels. And we should also develop a clear framework for the deployment of smart grid solution. This framework should promote the use of smart meters, inverters, and the deployment of integrated storage solution, in addition to accelerating the electrical connection with neighboring countries. Next slide, please. I believe also eventually these changes will lead us to restructuring of Jordan's electricity sector from single buyer model to competitive market, which will increase the competitiveness of the generation and the distribution sectors. Also, we stressed on the review of the electricity tariff by introducing the time use tariff, which reflects the actual cost of electricity at the time is being consumed and creates more flexible and reliable grid. I guess the newly released tariff does not contain anything related to the time of use. We also suggested to support the sector as a long-term recommendation. Number 4, to support the sector by creating new opportunities through electrification and cross-sectoral work, mainly to rely on renewable electricity in different sectors, the transport sector, the building sector, HVAC, industry, in addition to the water sector. And recommendation number 5, next slide, please, to promote energy efficiency across all sectors. This will be done by applying the energy efficiency first principle to ensure that the energy efficiency is applied within decision-making processes for all energy investment, and also to promote energy efficiency on existing and newly built buildings. And finally, to support technical vocational education and training in the clean energy industries. That we stress that the recovery plan should finance the development of national guidelines for PV, solar thermal, and energy efficiency training for technical and educational training courses with private sector participation. That's it, and back to Dr. Iyad.
Thank you, Reem. Thank you, Engineer Green, for the presentation and talking about the findings of this policy paper, actually. I want again to, before we go to the next step and the questions and the discussion, I want again to welcome our colleagues from Ministry of Energy and Engineering, Shuruq Abdelghani, for attending this meeting and for their continuous support for the partnership with the private sector, always with Edama and other entities. Thank you very much. Now, if you have questions also, we received a few of them. about in the box. So I have the first question. Still, you can send your questions through this, and we will manage to send them to the panelists. I have a question here about one of the pillars. Maybe I go to Mr. Miguel about skills and training needed in this area on this field after the COVID pandemic. Is there any specific changes we'll see in the market? Is there any skills or training programs how to deal? It's not only just for maybe for engineers, maybe for entities, or maybe for how to deal with flexible loads. So what do you think from the experience now? Maybe we all are learning how to deal with this post-COVID era, but what do you think about skills and training programs for engineers and maybe for private sectors to deal with, or let's a little bit to reduce the effect of future crises like this?
Thanks, Dr. Iyad, and thanks, Lara, for the very good question. I mean, in general, what we see is that we need a skilled workforce across the value chain for solar, and particularly across the project development process for solar. So you definitely, at least in the EU, see a bottleneck with regards to available engineers who can design and plan and lead the EPC of a plant, but also, and this is probably where we see the highest job creation potential in the deployment. And you need to a lot of skilled workers who can go and deploy to the highest quality standard, which we defend these new installations. I mean, I can't really go too much more into detail as we are about to publish a report on the solar job market in the EU, where a lot of these answers will be given. I can just invite you to tune in and download when we present it in the coming weeks.
Thank you very much for that.
Also, we can mention that the German-Jordanian Energy Partnership have done a report on it's a capacity needs assessment in the field of renewable energy. Maybe Bassam can talk about this study.
Yes, thank you, Reem, for that. Actually, the capacity needs assessment was more looking at the TVET sector, not a student of universities, but nevertheless, the skills that is required is of similar cases. For now, we see that the way forward for the renewable energies is actually to go vertical in regards of skills. Therefore, the skills required in here is to improve the quality of installation of solar energy and hopefully to improve the skills in regards of energy efficiency, which is unfortunately until now not optimized in the sector, especially in the industrial sector, as we heard of. On the other part, the innovation is actually in its way. We have seen the change happening in developed countries. For example, storage systems is of importance to facilitate grid flexibility. EV coupling with the grid is of importance, and therefore EV maintenance, EV operation, EV, let's say, coupling with a PV system and a storage system on the house is of importance. Other than these two topics, we can see that skills in regards of building envelope is really the way forward for energy efficiency to be implemented. Otherwise, household sector is the biggest consumer in here, cannot keep up with efficiency measures if the envelope is still as is implemented now. This is, let's say, the hint for what skills that is needed, but further studies should be implemented and in cooperation with industrial sector. And actually, just to let you know, I'm speaking from Amman Chamber of Industry, because we intend to establish with a partnership of multiple stakeholders here in Jordan to develop a German-Jordanian energy program that will enhance the skills for technician level. In this area, we are seeking their view and vision for what skills that is required for the industrial sector. And we are open for cooperation with any partner in here, and we welcome all of you. So if you want, please contact me or maybe forward your question to Edama and they will convey it to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Bassam. Our colleague,
yeah, if I may I just jump in? I see our good colleague from Memar, Shuruq, has her hand raised. I don't know if she wants to ask a question or...
I see that. I want to give her the floor now for engineering Shuruq. You can unmute. Yes, go ahead, please. Engineering Shuruq.
Thank you. هيك سامعني؟
واضح الصوت. Yes.
Thank you all. I really would like first to thank you all. Thank you, Edama and Jordan and the Jordan-German partnership for this policy paper. And this policy paper really shows the integration between public and the private sector. Since most of the recommendation align with our executive plan that comes from Jordan Energy Strategy 2020-2030. And we are working now on many projects to achieve this recommendation. For example, storage, we are working now on a strategy that related to storage for the next future, also for smart meters and the smart grid. In addition, as Bassam said, we are working in the Renewable Energy Academy, also to focus on the vocational training in renewable energy and energy efficiency. In the next future, we are focusing now also in the energy efficiency. Energy efficiency is very important, and we need to focus on the next projects. And when someone comes to us and talk about renewable energy, we are talking now in renewable energy and energy efficiency before moving to renewable energy, because it's very important in this regarding to clean for recovery from COVID also. I hope that when we achieving these projects that we will achieve a good result, that we see this result and its impact on all the sectors in Jordan. I would like to thank you, and we hope that we will work together also in the future to achieve this project and to achieve the result that we all want in this field. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineering Shuruq, for Abdelghani, for this insight, actually talking about the future planning for this sector. Very important, as we all saw the international practice dealing with this COVID pandemic. Always they talk about new strategies and new policies dealing with more flexible grids. And what you mentioned about storage, smart meters, smart grid, and also supported by training, I think this will fall in the right direction to deal with, let's say, to develop this market more and give more motivation for sustainable measures. Thank you very much. I have a question. Maybe I will go to Mr. Samer Jude and say, as the private sector, from the survey we had, seeing that many companies had financial challenges, let's say. They saw a high decrease in revenues, cash flow, and also very important, the disturbance in supply chain. And recent days, we see high cost of steel structure, cables, insurance, shipping from different countries. How do you think actually this affected the companies and the projects, and also in return affected the say Jordanians who are or consumers? And at the same time, do you think this will last for how long? I mean, is it going to be this year, next year? So what's your perspective on that?
Thank you, Dr. Iyad. I think it goes without saying the unfortunate unfolding of events over the past year and a half had a direct and severe impact, not just when it comes to what you correctly stated as the interruption to the supply chain, the increase in prices, but we were going through various periods of different levels of restrictions and lockdowns and work from home, and even for projects that were operating or in operation, they had some limited permits. You had the defense laws. I think the effect in a nutshell was very severe. I have some colleagues here I see who are attending, who are in the business of installation of small to medium size solar plants and even utility scale. They had their approvals. They couldn't manage to meet the deadlines. As you know, these companies suffered drastically. They had to, in some cases, lay off workers, but then the defense laws came and put some restrictions on that. So that added to the financial burdens on these companies. And I think we're still suffering from that, and it's going to take some time to get out of that. We all read the news about the interruptions to the supply chains now for different reasons. At the beginning, it was because of lockdowns and restrictions. Now we hear that there are delays in shipping lines and interruptions and disruptions to the supply of materials for other reasons. And in some cases, even when the containers do arrive, the prices have doubled and quadrupled in some cases. So in short, I hope that this does not last for long. We always have to remain optimistic. Your question on what my perspective is moving forward, I think it's a combination. We need not only to monitor the current situation and try our best to try and deal with it, but I think we will need the support of the authorities here with incentives, with encouragement, with the opening of the market in order to have the economy recover as soon as possible. I don't know if my friend I see Hanna Zaghloul, who's very much in this, if he would like to, I would like to invite him to say a few comments, because I know that he had a couple of projects in the pipeline and that were severely disrupted because of this. So maybe Hanna, if you don't mind, sorry for calling on you abruptly on this, but I think it's important if you give us your perspective on some of the projects that I know you had approved and were in the process of installing, but were disrupted because of the conditions. So maybe you can jump in and just give a perspective on that. طبعا بعد إذنك دكتور إياد.
Yeah, بالتأكيد he is more than welcome actually, and one of the questions came from him, so we can ask him also about what you said, and to listen to the experience from the local market for their projects they developed, and also what they see required actually to deal with these financial obstacles. Mr. Hanna. Engineering Hanna Zaghloul, please. Hanna Zaghloul, my colleagues, if you can open the mic for him.
This is assuming he's listening to us. Ah, there he is.
Yeah, he is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay,
Go ahead.
great. Thank you for allowing me to interact with this very important, actually, session. And I see a very important document that's coming out of how to recover after COVID, and the roadmap actually that it was outlined in these papers. Samir, as you have mentioned, definitely we have suffered because of COVID and after the aftermath of COVID, and also of the policies that's been imposed on us from the government, be it the capping or also be it also defense law number 6 or what have you. It hasn't been easy the past 2 years, and it's extremely difficult to continue in such an environment unless the government opens up the doors for us to bring back investments and be able to continue building what we have started in terms of renewable energy here in Jordan and the success story. What really hurts is that we all know exactly what we need to do and how we can recover fast, yet we're not taking action. The private sector trying to take action, the government, unfortunately, on the other side, they have different type of worries than instead of building the economy, they are looking at things from a financial perspective. And as long as we look at it from this angle, I think we're gonna be within the same circle. What we're talking about, it's not a miracle that we're trying to create. Simply, we need just to electrify the economy and decarbonize it. Very simple. And as you are all aware, there's a huge amount of money out there that we can attract for such action that we need to take. Yet we're still going after some type of resources. I don't think that it's going to be beneficial for us, instead of looking at the abundant resource that we have, and we have it for free, but we're not taking the advantage of it. So it's, in a certain extent, it's frustrating because we know exactly what we need to do. We know exactly where we can bring the money for what we need to do in terms of electrification and decarbonization, yet we're not taking action. Very simple. Today, the unemployment rate is extremely high in Jordan, especially between the educated ones, between the university degrees people. How can we open, jobs and create jobs for them if we don't really jump into the renewable energy wagon? And that's where the whole world is going. I mean, look at, Europe, what they are doing, that amount of money that they are investing for renewable energy and technologies. Similarly, the United States, and yet we're not taking advantage from these type of available opportunity for us to tap into. We are very good, smart, educated engineers, IT, communication people, but we're not utilizing them, okay? So I really wonder, what are we waiting for? Very simple. I hope that the government start to take action in a way that they look at the economy more than they look at the financial matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Hanna. Thank you for your, let's say, talk about insights about the report and the market in Jordan. We know it's hard, it's been hard, and it's still hard on the companies in Jordan and the projects. And this part of market actually is part of the general industrial market and commercial market in Jordan. So if it's, let's say, if something bad happened to it, the whole sector will be, or the whole market in Jordan will be affected. So we need to look for that. I have questions I will to Miguel, some of the recommendations that we had is that talking about electrification of other sectors, let's say heating, ventilation, and the most important one maybe for Jordan is the transportation. Talking about green hydrogen and other sectors. How do you see this is urgent from the experience in Europe? Maybe it's different cases for sure, but do you think having more electrification is a priority now for like a country like Jordan, and how this can be part of the solution to have more flexible grid and flexible demand production side?
Thank you very much for the question, Dr. Iyad. I mean, the short answer is yes. Renewable-based electrification is definitely a priority, both in Europe and, from what I understand, in Jordan. At the end of the day, what you want to see as you move towards higher levels of renewable energy deployment, particularly renewable electricity deployment, is to anchor a demand for that renewable electricity. But particularly, you also want to anchor that that demand with technologies which are much more clean and efficient than the alternatives. And this is particularly the case, as you've very rightly pointed out, with regards to electric mobility, which are a very important source of and very difficult to abate source of emissions if you don't do it with renewable electricity. And there's a huge opportunity because the moment to invest in electric mobility is right now, when the whole industry is finally shifting towards electric drivetrains. The cost of batteries are decreasing, with the added benefits in terms of noise and air pollution decreases. But more broadly, electrification is going to be a vector to accelerate the transition towards climate neutrality. In particular, also because it enables much better energy system integration, which is one of the key priorities right now in the European Union, which wants to move towards a system, towards an energy system which is much more circular, and where what were previously only energy demand sectors can contribute both with supply and the provision of demand-side flexibility services. And here, I'm particularly thinking of the buildings sector, which in the European Union have an immense potential to generate renewable electricity, but also, as I just said, to play a much more active role within the energy system, and ensuring that the electricity is consumed when it is most available, and providing support for the grid and the rest of the users when renewable electricity will be more scarce. And all of this will require, as you very well know, investments into smart grids and distributed generation and storage assets, which will be needed anyway. So again, the recovery plans are a unique opportunity to direct the investments that are needed towards these sectors in order to accelerate the transition.
Excellent, Miguel. Thank you very much for this. And I want to add to it that, as you mentioned, having more electrification in other sectors like transportation, or let's say heating, ventilation, cooling, and other fields of industry needs a more flexible and more dynamic grid, and it needs more stable grid. That means dealing with having storage, smart grids, smart meters, other, let's say, other innovations. And as you know, and I want to say that we are working now in the innovation package, dealing with e-mobility, solar, let's say, management, energy management for building connected to solar, dealing with blockchains, prosumers, peer-to-peer, open market. All these innovation things are very important, and they will support a more flexible and more strong, reliable grid actually in Jordan. And here, it's very good news to hear that what engineering Shuruq Abdel Ghani mentioned, that the ministry is working actually on storage regulations, smart grids, smart meters, that all these things together will support this direction. Yes, to have more flexible grid, we'll need that. And here at the same time, looking for the sector as a whole package, we had recently the new electricity tariff in Jordan, that always we mentioned before that dealing with this energy sector, part of it will be dealing with the old tariff that we had, and now we have a reform, let's say, in the electricity tariff. This is one of the questions from Mustafa Hashim. Mustafa, thank you for that question, but I want to say that as this is still in new news and still in this week, maybe still needs more time to study and see the effect of it on the renewable energy. As you mentioned, prosumers, or we don't have prosumers so far as much. We have either consumers or producers. What I learned that Edama will have an event soon to discuss the effect of the new tariff on the renewable sector, and studies are underway now to see the effect of this on the renewables. But if our panelists want to talk about this, please, any one of them want to elaborate or talk about the connection between them, you are welcome to raise your hand and talk about this topic. If not, I will go.
I'd like just to, if I may,
Sam, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to take your cue and talk about the tariff issue. Yes, we are actually in communication with Her Excellency the Minister at MEMER, and we are with our colleagues reviewing and analyzing the new tariffs and their effect on the various sectors, and we will come up with a paper soon, hopefully, that a position paper that we hope to share with the ministry with our maybe advice and some recommendations. So thank you very much for pointing that out. And of course, we will share with our members and with everybody once that's finalized.
Yeah, thank you very much. One questions that we are reaching the time, but still we have some time for one question for engineering green. One of the findings that was energy efficiency and energy management that we need to focus more, that will help the markets. So can you please elaborate more, because you were in direct contact with the different private companies about the measures of energy efficiency, how this can help with the reform of this sector, having more renewables maybe installed, the new electricity tariff, all these things. How do you see energy efficiency and energy management will fit and create maybe more jobs in the Jordanian markets?
Yeah, basically we introduced the energy efficiency first principle in the context of evaluating the energy investment. So the decision-making process should basically consider the energy efficiency first, and then decide on expanding the investment to renewable energy resources. So there is a full room for investment in renewable energy in the new builds. We also suggested to mandate solar storage and smart meters to all new buildings. So this is a good opportunity for private sector to work in. Additionally, we also suggested to promote on-sites renewable in the buildings. So on-sites will focus on the demand side flexibility improvements. So there is a huge business opportunities in the renovation of buildings and using the highly energy efficient devices and electronics.
Thank you very much. I think, as you mentioned, energy efficiency is very essential for the Jordanian market. First of all, to deal with the energy management and also at the same time create jobs. And with the new trends actually in renewables, energy efficiency is very important to keep. One thing I want to ask maybe Engineering Bassam about the program going ahead as this part of the program is dealing with the COVID, the policy paper, and you talked about the let's say the energy program. You mentioned renewable, right? What about energy efficiency? Is it part of your target in the future in Jordan?
Energy efficiency is of importance to the Ministry of Energy, and therefore, as an energy partnership between Jordania and Germany, we for sure have it as a priority within our implementations in here. We will tackle the energy efficiency in different aspects, coming from policy in regards of advising the ministry and exchange of experts. This is one field. And the other field, we also will have a training in regards of energy efficiency within the German-Jordanian energy program. Other than that, hopefully next year we will start activity in regards of renewable energy within the industrial sector, and we will see or study a diverse mix of renewable energy, not only the PV, but hopefully other type of renewable energies in there. And for sure, one of the most important activities we are planning to do is actually the National Energy Efficiency Action Plan. That is hopefully will be, let's see, finished early next year. That depends on how the progress is going on with all stakeholders. In this regards, the German Energy Agency, DENA, is actually the lead partner in this implementation with different stakeholders here in Jordan. We are currently in discussion with the ministry on how to implement the update for the third NEAB. Hopefully soon you will hear from us about this activity.
Thank you very much. As I didn't receive fresh questions for the panelists or people want to have their discussion, at the end, I want to thank all for attending this webinar, actually, and we are all looking forward, actually, to have these policies taken as serious and maybe implemented in the future. They will help the market. They will help to deal with the COVID-19, and it will be a lesson learned for, unfortunately, if something happened in the future, how to deal with this market, so we don't go again in the same steps, maybe, or be slow in reaction. So this is very important topic. I want to thank Engineering Shuruq Abdelghani from the Ministry of Energy for her attendance and participation in this webinar. I want to thank the Jordanian-German partnership, Engineering Bassam Darwish, for his attendance and presentation, and all thanks also for the support for this program. I want to thank our partners, Solar Power Europe, Miguel, and all the team there, and thanks to Edama team. Mr. Samer, thank you very much for your discussion and insights, actually very valuable. And thanks to Jean Grim Al-Masri and Natalie and all the team here, Noordin, Sam, Jean, Diana, we don't forget. All of you, thank you very much. And hopefully we will have a next webinar talking about maybe the new electricity tariff and talking about innovation in this energy sector in Jordan. Thank you very much. I also want to thank Hanna and all the Hanna Zaghloul for all who participated. Thank you very much, and looking forward to see you soon. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad. You've covered it all, and I would like, on behalf of the board of directors and everybody and the team at Edama, to thank you for your very capable moderation of this session. Just a few very brief points to close out this webinar. Jordan, this COVID pandemic is not Jordan specific, so the whole world suffered from it. And I think the lessons learned is that we need to learn from each other across the world on how to fully recover from this very unfortunate situation. And I think I'm always optimistic by nature, and I think we should all look forward to working together and exploring more opportunities to help come out of this and hopefully to boost the economy and move forward. Thank you again, everybody, and hope to see you again soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.